Hi, I'm Jim O'Donnell, and I'm here to give you an overview of what you would expect when you enter one of our VILT classrooms. Let's start at the very beginning. You get a letter, you get an email that welcomes you and introduces you to the class. And what you want to do is you want to find on that email a link to enter the classroom itself. And you will find this link. Basically, it says to join the meeting, click here. So you want to do that, and that will take you to a screen which will allow you to enter your name. Now, obviously, you want to put in your full name typically. Once you have been in a class a few sessions and the instructor knows you, maybe you've established a nickname or a preferred name, then you could probably feel comfortable using that. But the first time you go into the classroom, you definitely want to give your full name because that allows the instructor to know, who is in the class and can navigate easily. So I'm going to give my whole name here as an example, Jim O'Donnell, and you enter the room then. So here we are in the Adobe Connect classroom environment. The exact classroom, the exact screen that you see may look a little different than this because the instructor always has the flexibility to open up additional windows or tools, and so you may see something that is a little different. However, this would be fairly typical, and let's go ahead and go over this fairly typical environment. The first thing I'd like for you to notice is over here on the right, we have the attendees panel. And this lists me as one of the participants, also lists the host, which would typically be the instructor. Next to my name, you see a couple little icons, a little microphone setting there, which indicates that the instructor has given participants the right to use microphones, which is typically going to be the case. I'd like to draw your attention now to some very important buttons at the very top of the screen, right above where the PowerPoint slide deck is shown. You see a number of icons here. Mute my speakers, which you can turn your speakers on or off just by clicking that button. Connect my audio, which I'm going to go ahead and turn on. Notice now that as I'm speaking, the microphone indicates that voice, that audio coming out. If I click again, it will mute the microphone. So again, this is something that you're probably going to want to control once you're in the environment. Typically, if you're not talking to the class, asking a question or making a point, go ahead and mute your microphone up here, and that way, any noise that you have in your background won't be disturbing the class. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and turn it on. The other thing you can do is start your webcam. So if you want to project your video to other students, to the instructor, which is a nice thing to do, especially early in the class. People get to see your face, and you can do that. Most of the time, however, that's very much a voluntary type of situation. If you're at home and you're in a comfortable setting, maybe there's too many things in the background that you don't think is necessary that people see, or if you're dressed very casually, for instance, don't worry about it. You don't have to turn that on. But if you do want to turn it on, you just click on it, and then you can start to share. You get a little preview here, which you can see over here on the right, top right-hand corner of the classroom environment. It gives you a preview so that you can kind of see what other people will see. And you don't have to be embarrassed, perhaps. It just comes on, and all of a sudden, the video is showing something that you don't want to show. So once it's to your liking, you can click Start Sharing. And there you go. So at this point, this video that you see on the screen, which you can see right now, is being broadcast in a smaller setting, depending on how many people have their video on, because it has to, this little window here has to fit everyone's videos. So if you have a big class and you have a lot of people doing videos, they're actually all going to be very small. At least that allows you to see little faces, and then when they speak, it becomes a little bigger. So it's a great way to get that sort of nonverbals, personalized feeling for a live setting. Now, one thing you may want to consider is using the video selectively. Even as an instructor, I tend to do that. So I'll put the video on if there's something that I want to show the students as a demonstration, or certainly at the beginning of the class so people can see me, get, again, a little bit of that social personalization aspect of the classroom. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that off now, because again, that's something you'll probably want to do just selectively. But communication, of course, is a big part of your experience in this environment. And there's a number of ways for you to communicate effectively with the instructor as well as other students. Of course, audio is one. You can just talk. You can just verbalize your questions, your examples, your history. A lot of times, though, you want to sort of get the permission or attention of the instructor before you just go ahead and talk. And so the way you typically do that is you raise your hand. Now, raising your hand is done by clicking on a little icon. Again, it's at the very top of the screen, right next to the webcam button that we just looked at a second ago. And by clicking the little person that has their hand up, click that button there. You can see now that next to your name in the participants panel, you've raised your hand. So that gets the attention of the instructor, and typically the instructor at the appropriate point will say, go ahead, you have a question or a comment, please. And then you can talk and so on. Now, keep in mind, of course, if you did have your microphone muted, you have to go back up here and unmute your microphone to be able to speak and have other people listen to you. So that's one of the ways that you can get attention and communicate. Now, right up there where you can raise your hand, and by the way, you lower your hand by clicking on the button again, and it's gone. In addition to raising your hand, you can click the little down arrow next to that icon, and there's a number of other things that you can click on here to communicate with the class. You can agree with something that someone says or the instructor says, and that's something that the instructor might ask you to do now and again. Give me a green check mark, everyone, if you're back from the break, or give me a green check mark if you agree with this statement. So there's a green check mark there. Obviously, there's a disagree button. There's other things you can use, step away, which is a good idea if you've actually stepped away, or as you're going to step away to get a refreshment or just to take a short break. It's a good idea to let the class know, especially the instructor, that in fact you won't be around for the next minute or two. Go ahead and click the step away button, and that way the instructor knows not to call on you. They know your status. You can do other things too as the situation warrants. Laughter, applause, speed up, slow down, and you can click the clear status, which gets rid of everything. Another important communication tool within this environment is the chat window. It's very easy to put out a chat. Hello, good evening, which is what I'm putting out there now. So, I said hello, good evening to everyone. So that might be a way to introduce yourself to the class when you get in there. When you do send a chat, you have the ability to send the chat to everyone in the room, or just the instructor, the host, or just another student. So be careful, make sure that you're familiar with that. You can go ahead and change that at any time. There's a little pod options at the top right-hand corner of most of the pods. So in the chat window, that's no exception. If you click the little options button there, it allows you to change, for instance, who you're chatting with, the text size of your chats, the color, and so on. Another ability to communicate that can be useful is drawing tools. And you may or may not have drawing tools available to you at all times when you're in the VILT class. It's up to the instructor. Typically, the instructor will turn on the drawing tools when there's an interaction calling for that. So currently, I have the drawing tools enabled. So you can see the drawing tools over here on the very left side of the screen. And there's various tools. You can click the selection button and that allows you to select and point to things. There's also marker, which can be very handy, and there's various markers. There's a highlighter, there's a pen, there's a pencil, and then there's a classic marker. If you select the marker, then it allows you to circle or to draw things. Obviously, the highlighter would allow you to highlight important areas. The big T that you see there is called the text tool. If you click on that, that allows you to click anywhere on the screen and type a message. Now, it doesn't actually show up on other people's screens until you click off of it. So while you're typing, if you make a mistake or you make a typo, you can kind of go backspace and edit it. And then when the message is the way you want it, then go ahead and click elsewhere, and that'll send that text to the class exactly on the screen where you typed it. Now, you're not going to want to use these drawing tools indiscriminately, of course. When the instructor is going over a lesson plan and showing something on the screen, you probably don't want to go ahead and put funny messages on the screen. Might not be appropriate. However, typically the instructor is going to give you cues. Hey, look at this list. Everyone click on the items in this list that you are familiar with or you think are most important. There may be a map, and the instructor might say, well, click, put a check mark on the place of the map where you're from or where you are currently. So that takes us to the next tools on the drawing tool, and that's a number of symbols like a rectangle, which you can click on and draw a rectangle. But next to the rectangle, again, the little drop-down arrow gives you additional symbols that you can put on the screen. The one that I would say is probably the most commonly used in this classroom environment would be the check mark tool. So if you click on the check mark tool, you can put a check mark anywhere on the screen. So again, you'll often see instructors use this by saying, look at the list, put a check mark please on one or more of the following things from that list that you have experience with, or you agree with, or you think are most important. Now obviously this check mark is a different one than the one we looked at earlier, which is the green check that goes next to your name on the participants panel. They're both check marks, obviously used for different purposes. And the final thing I'd like to cover briefly is you do have a short menu at the top of the screen. You can click under Meeting, and there you can change a few things. The most important thing I'd like to point out to you is the audio setup wizard. Either first when you get into the classroom, or if at any point you get some feedback that your audio isn't coming in clear, or maybe your sound isn't as loud as it needs to be. Go ahead and launch this audio setup wizard, and that takes you through a simple wizard that allows you to select what speakers you're going to be using in the class. It allows you to play a sound to test the volume of the speakers. It allows you to select your webcam if you have more than one on your computer. It allows you to test your microphone, which could be particularly important. So you can record a message here, and then you can play it back and hear it and make sure that it's working, make sure that the volume is appropriate. Well, there you are. That's the basic elements of the Adobe Connect environment, and those are the ones that I think you will find that you'll use most when you are in the classroom. Now, in some situations, you're going to go into a breakout room, and a breakout room has additional tools and functionality which are very important for group exercises. That's in a separate video, so I would encourage you to look at that video also. I hope this helps you, and good luck and have fun in your VILT classroom.